afternoon, everybody. I noticed that the meeting was beginning to go quieter, so you can sense that it's time for us to start. I'm Deborah Evans. I'm the chair of the Trust, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to our annual members meeting. I can see that we've got in the room a mixture of members of the public, we've got members of our Council of Governors, and we've got members of the Trust Board, plus a number of colleagues who work in the Trust, and you're all very welcome. This is our annual opportunity. It's a formal opportunity, which we're required to do, but also pleased to do, to allow us to report back and be held accountable for what we've done over the past year. So there are some more formal items, including presentation of our accounts and our annual report. And we are also, and so they are important. But we also have a couple of more deep dive subjects on areas we thought would be of interest to you. One is about our cancer services and our big space cancer appeal, and the other is about urology services. So I hope you will enjoy both of those. We have got brief times for questions at the end of each section, and also an open time at the end for questions on absolutely anything that you want to throw at us. So I'm just going to take us through that programme, and hopefully we'll get out before some sunset. I'm sure we will. As is always the case with these meetings, we record them. So I just wanted to let you know that that will be going on, and that it'll be possible to re-watch this if you've really enjoyed it as of tomorrow on our website. It's also the case, some of the questions we've had were submitted in advance, and have rather complex answers. So those will also be published on the website so that you can look at your leisure at the information that we've provided. And I hope we'll find that there's a dialogue in the room about some things which are of interest. So because we're in a formal meeting, I need to take us through the minutes of the AGM from last year. And you may see that there are paper copies there. So I don't know, put your hand up if you were here last year. Okay, so probably enough of us to be able to say, yes, these are a correct record, or these are not a correct record. They're relatively brief. I'm not going to go through them page by page, which is what I would do at a board meeting, because I want to make sure that we spend most of our time on issues to do with the last 12 months. But I'm just going to pause now to see if anybody thinks they've seen anything in the minutes which were not correct. Okay, that's a relief. Good. Okay. Now, I think that means that we can go on to the next part of the agenda, which is the summary of the year and the forward view from our Chief Executive, Kevin McNamara, who, in terms of financial years, was only here for the last quarter of the last financial year. And inevitably, this always happens with a look back to the previous year. It will be important to bring us all up to date on progress that's made. So expect Kevin to more than stray into what's happening this year, and hopefully some positive stories about progress.
Thank you.
Oh dear.
See how that works.
There we are.
There we go.
Yes. We've done that. We've done that.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. And if any of you is going to watch this back again, I think that's a red flag. You need some support from us. But hopefully I'll give you a good overview of what's happened during the course of the last year, some of which I was here for, some of which I've picked up through my travels around the organisation. But as Deborah says, I'll bring you up to speed to a more sort of contemporaneous position as well. Whenever anyone used to ask me for career advice, I always used to say to them, never start an NHS job in the middle of winter. And then I chose to come to the Trust on the 2nd of January. So never ask me for career advice because I don't follow my own advice. One of the things that they always tell you as well with changing jobs is develop a 100-day plan. Make sure you've got something documented about what you're going to focus on. And there's that quote from a famous boxer that says, everyone has a plan until you get in the ring and get punched in the mouth. And there is something about working in the NHS that no matter how much you plan, there is just the day-to-day stuff that crops up that you have to react to. And I will talk a bit about some of that. This just gives you a snapshot of what we do as an organisation in a typical day. You can see the breadth and range of things that we do in the organisation every single day, but that is only a snapshot across the organisation. Often in the NHS, the big focus in the media can be around the emergency department and around maternity services. But one of the things that's really important is that in a leadership role, we shine a spotlight on all of the things we do across the organisation. So that gives you a sense of what it is that we do. To do that, we have just under 9,000 staff across the organisation providing support day in, day out to the local community. Across a whole range of disciplines. So we have about 160 different roles within the organisation, different types of jobs. So it isn't all about doctors and nurses and managers, the whole range of people that make this work happen. And alongside that as well, we have a huge number of volunteers as well that have stepped forward to give their time to support us, which we're hugely appreciative of as well. So just a few things around the first impression. So I was chief executive down at the Great Western in Swindon for about 5 years. I'd been there for a while before that. And my particular interest in joining the Trust was around the issue of people and culture. It's something I'm really passionate about. It's something that I'd worked on a lot within Swindon. And in conversations with Deborah as chair, I realised that actually that's something that this Trust was on a journey on as well. So I was really keen to play a part in that. I was hugely impressed with the talent and the quality of individuals within the organisation. Some leading edge clinicians across many disciplines are in this organisation. I think we're very lucky to have them in the county. And so part of our job as a leadership team is how can we support them to do the best that they can do. I mentioned having a plan for how I stepped into the organisation, but quite quickly that plan was derailed because we had a significant amount of national interest on the from the Panorama programme relating to maternity services. That was related to a number of cases of poor care over a number of years from between about 2019 to 2021. And it related particularly to the deaths of two babies at the Avita in Cheltenham and also the death of a mum here. And it was really important for me personally, whilst I wasn't here at the time, I am absolutely the accountable officer. I'm accountable for what happens in this organisation. And it's really important that we are open, transparent, honest and apologetic when we get things wrong. And we got things wrong in that case. And I'll come on a bit more about maternity services because there's more to share on that later on. But that was obviously a big focus early on. I sat with the midwives and some of the obstetricians the evening that the Panorama programme was aired and talked to them about their experiences working in the organisation. Some of that related to culture, and that has been a big theme of my time in the Trust over the past 10 months, has been how do we support that development of a culture, of a good culture. And my particular focus that you can see at the bottom of the screen are 4 key things that I think we have to do well in this organisation. Some of these things we are progressing positively on and some of them need a bit more extra support and work. The first one is around openness, and that is about how do we create a psychologically safe organisation where not only people can speak up and raise concerns about the quality of care, but also people can speak up and offer up ideas, new ideas, they can try them, they can fail freely on new ways of working, just so we can build a real sense of improvement within the organisation. And that absolutely is a team endeavour, that sense of safety amongst teams. The other element is around inclusion, and one of our big focus priorities for the coming period will be about how do we develop a much more inclusive culture. I had the privilege of listening to some of the experiences at the Black History Month celebration last week and listening to the different experiences that some of our staff have within the organisation. That is something that we absolutely have to address, and we are in the process of developing some actions that will support that. So there's a big theme around inclusion. And then from a well-being perspective, not just how do we support people with things like psychological support and the things like the free tea and coffee and the food discounts, but also how are we making sure that our staff within the organisation are trained, they have the time to train so they can develop new skills, so that when they're starting on shift, they know that they are competent and confident to be able to do what they need to do. And the final thing there around culture is around leadership. How do we build the leadership capability within the organisation? Many organisations across the NHS, we've lost a lot of very experienced people post-COVID. And we did a show of hands recently across our operational management team just to see how many of those people had been working in the trust before COVID, and only one person put their hand up. And so in many respects, a number of our colleagues that are working with us have been working in an environment that isn't normal for the NHS, that post-COVID recovery. So a number of colleagues will be working in an NHS that has never functioned correctly. So they haven't had the experience of working in an NHS that has had low waiting times, has had really good processes, has managed the money well, etc. So there are things that we want to do to support our teams over the next 12 months and beyond. And then a couple of final reflections there. Our relationships in Gloucestershire are positive, particularly with our governors and particularly with our ICB colleagues as well. And some of that you can see as evidenced by the Community Diagnostic Centre down in the centre of town here, just by the quays. And that was an absolute team effort to get that diagnostic centre up and running so that fewer people needed to come into a building like this for diagnostics, and they could go there. It'd be a much more slicker and efficient process. But one of the real things that I didn't think I would have to spend as much time on in my work was the issue around estates and estates backlog. Now, I worked in a hospital that was a PFI. It had a number of issues, most of which related to it being expensive, but the estate was pretty good quality. But staff still complained about the quality of the estate and car parking and other things as well. And coming here, I felt quite quickly that I wanted to get a bus for ex-colleagues in Swindon and get them up the road to Gloucester and say, just look at all of this. Look at what you don't have to deal with. We have a bill of around £100 million maintenance backlog in this organisation, which is a huge figure. And actually, there's a suggestion that might be slightly undercut, so it will be at least that figure. There's a picture of the tower there. The left-hand side of the tower you can see as being the new cladding to make it more thermally efficient. And the right-hand side you can see the sort of the old facade. I think it's really important to recognise that when we do these projects, as important as they are, the infrastructure within them doesn't change. And so one of the big things that I think the NHS is grappling with is how do we improve the quality of our estate, because that is absolutely a driver of the efficiency. We often will have theatres that will go down because the ventilation will break down, and that obviously interrupts our flow of procedures. We want to make sure it's a safe environment, things like fire safety, water safety, electrical safety, all of those other things go into that. And then, of course, we want to plan for the future. So some of the work that you'll hear about in relation to urology, in relation to the cancer services, that is about how can we invest in new services as well. So we have to do all of those things together as well. And some of these things are about making it better for patients. Some of it's about making it better for staff. And I think the most obvious thing there would be the investment that we need to make in our digital infrastructure so that staff aren't frustrated when they're having to log into systems, and that's a huge part of what we do from a capital perspective. So just a few things on highlights. Well, actually, some of them aren't highlights, but they are points of the year. Trusts across the country have been grappling with the post-COVID recovery, but over the past 2 years as well, we've been grappling with the recovery from all the handling of industrial action. And sadly, we were a trust that developed a really good capability in how to plan for strike action. It's one of those skills that you don't really ever want to develop, but the team have been absolutely remarkable in being able to continue to deliver services to reduce the impact on things like cancer treatment through those strike actions. And we keep our fingers crossed that we won't return to that position. The other thing for this trust as well has been the huge regulatory focus across the organisation. And I think by the last count, depending on how you count an inspection, which should be straightforward, but in the past 2 years alone, we've had about 7 inspections, at least 7 inspections across the organisation. And that obviously has a significant impact on the trust. It's an important mirror that's held up to the organisation about things that we need to do differently, need to do better. So it's important that we're really open and receptive to those things. And we want to get it right. So regulation is quite a significant focus here. And then from a renewal perspective, we've had a number of changes at the executive team. Obviously, I started in January. We had Al Shuadaku, who's on leave at the moment, start at around the same time. And recently, we've had Kerry Rogers, our Director of Integrated Governance, join us to help improve what we do around governance. And Will Cleary-Gray, who joined us just last week, is our Director of Improvement and Delivery. And just yesterday, we made an appointment on a new Chief Digital Officer as well. And we've also had new NED colleagues, and we've got a new chair of our Quality and Performance Committee. And so all of that is part of the sort of context and the highlights of things that we've been spending our time on. But also that bit about how do we reconnect with teams in the organisation. I've absolutely heard that message in parts of our organisation that really want us to work with them differently. So we as an executive team are going through our own development work to make sure that we can work in a different way and build that trust and reconnection with parts of our organisation. But there is still much more to do. So in the staff survey, those of you that are familiar with the Trust, a couple of years ago, we had very poor staff survey results and low morale. This year, we had a response rate of 68%, one of the best in the country, so that showed some really positive signs around engagement. And you can see here, these people promises are national people promises. Within that, there are lots of questions that make up those promises, and you can see how the scores are then sort of worked out. I think the important thing at the end there is whether it's a statistically significant change, and you can see that improvement at the end there. So that's a positive, but they are early signs. I don't want to oversell them. And I think it's also reflective of, I guess, the low base that we were starting with. I'll just explore those a little bit further. Just on the right-hand side here, that was where we were compared to a range of other trusts that use the same provider. So in 2022, you can see if you're on that end of the scale, we were 64. So we were one of the trusts that had deteriorated the most when it came to the survey. Actually, I think we're the second worst there. This last year, you can see that we're the 12th most improved as well. So moving in the right direction. But again, I'm always careful not to oversell these things. There is a lot of work to do, and Claire Radley, our Chief People Officer, is key to leading the charge around that. Obviously, we only get a marker once a year on the staff survey. What we do on a quarterly basis, we have something called the Pulse survey that asks fewer questions, so a small subset of questions. And you can see the movement in some of those over the past few quarters. And two key questions in that are, I would recommend my organisation as a place to work. That's obviously key to encouraging people to want to work here and advocate for the trust. And also the second question, if a friend or relative needed treatment, I would be happy with the standard of care provided by this organisation. So we want staff to be proud about the care that they provide. We know that the jobs are tricky and difficult, and particularly at our busiest times. So we don't ever expect it to be a quiet day, but we want people to go home from work and feeling proud of the contribution that they've made. So that is an important focus for us. And then just a few other highlights from the last year. We've had a significant amount of investment in the sites. So whilst I mentioned about the backlog maintenance, trying to get that balance between the shiny and new and what I call the boring but important compliance things is really, really key for us. But on some of the shiny and new, just at Cheltenham, we've had 2 new theatres and the Chedworth Surgical Unit. That was part of a £17 million investment. We had the Prime Minister come and visit that back in March, and you can see there around 1,600 more patients per year can be treated. And one of the real assets in this organisation, having come in from a trust that had all of its services all under one roof, which is sometimes quite helpful in terms of staff connection, the fact that we have 2 sites, the ability to be able to protect our elective activity, to be able to work through the waiting list is really important, particularly when we are very, very busy. In other organisations, you end up cancelling lots of elective activity to accommodate the ambulances and things like that. So we are very fortunate in that way. At the Royal end, so here we had a new emergency department, newly expanded emergency department, and as I've mentioned, the CDC in the centre of town as well. So those are just a few of the things that we've seen during the course of the year. From a quality and performance perspective, a number of things that you will see that you will have seen in this trust and will be common across the NHS. There was a dispatches programme back in July time relating to Shrewsbury, showing some of the impact that real significant pressures were having on the quality of care. You will have heard the issue of corridor care in organisations like ours, and it was a common feature of the trust. And we've worked really hard to try to make that, not normalise that as a practice. Now, of course, that relies on the whole system working, not just the trust. It means that we have to make sure patients are being discharged quickly from the back door, that we really slick on our processes internally when patients are waiting beds for tests and drugs and things like that, but also at the front door when we know that 1 in 5 ambulances don't need to be here if another alternative is available, that we get the front door working and what's happening in the community sorted as well. So it is absolutely a whole system thing. And what we've been able to do since the 8th of July is we haven't boarded a single patient in the trust since the 8th of July. What that means is we haven't had to move patients onto wards overnight underneath fluorescent lights like this where it's noisy and they can't get comfortable waiting for a discharge. That might sound like something that's relatively small and simple to do. It takes a huge amount of work to make that happen. And we've consistently done that over the summer months. And our goal is to hold on to that through the winter months. And it will be a challenge, but I think it's a really important thing that we set our ambition around what we want to do there. And I mentioned about the number of patients at the back door. When I started on the 2nd of January, it was around 215 patients were in our hospital beds that needed to be supported elsewhere, whether at home, in the community, or in a nursing home. That figure today actually was around the 130 mark, there or thereabouts. We've got it down to about 105 a few weeks ago. So it is something that will vary, but we're really focused on that. Again, that is a measure of how well the system is working, not just how well the trust is working. So that's a big focus for us. And we've set a goal as a system to get to 87 by the end of this year, which is a tall ask, but we want to get as close as we can. And then from a waiting list perspective, there are a number of big measures that we have to look at, not just the waiting list size, but the number of people that are waiting a very long time. And it wasn't that long ago in the NHS that if you had somebody waiting more than a year for treatment, you would have to report it to the national team. You were held to account nationally for your performance because it was so exceptional. And so very few trusts actually had people waiting more than a year. With COVID and all of the things that have happened since, we saw patients across the NHS, some patients waiting more than 2 years for treatment. And so these are the measures that we now hold ourselves to. 78 weeks, 65 weeks and 52 weeks with a goal to get as many patients as possible treated within a year and then how much further we can go. At 78 weeks, we're one of the best performers in the region. At 65 weeks, we're second best, and at 52, third. But I want to say that is relative, to where the NHS once was. That's not a sign of a sense of pride or anything. It's a recognition of the work that's taken place to do that. But there's a lot for us to do to be able to eliminate some of that backlog that's built up from pre-COVID, COVID, and industrial action. And then I shan't steal too much of Sam's thunder around cancer and the work that we do, but there are a number of measures that we have to perform against relating to cancer. And I'll just show you on the next slide what these looks like. So on the left, you've got the elective work. On the right there, you've got the cancer standards. 3 standards: the 28-day faster diagnosis. So that's about being diagnosed within 28 days of a suspected cancer. Because obviously, the quicker you're diagnosed, the chances of and the quicker you're treated, the chances of survival are increased. 31 days decision to treat standard, you can see on the right there, and then the 62-day referral to treatment. So that is by the time you get referred from your GP to when you get to receive your first treatment, shouldn't be longer than 62 days. And you can see our performance. The national standard's in red or pink, and our performance is in blue. So there's work still to do around cancer, and some of the work that we're doing, developing the longer term thinking is key to that Sam will talk through. And then from an emergency department perspective, this slide shows you 2 different measures. One, when we look at it system-wide, which takes into account how our emergency departments are functioning, both at the Royal end and at the Cheltenham end, but also what's happening in our minor injury units across the county now. They're not ours in the sense of we don't run them, but our partners at Gloucestershire Health and Care do, and they are key to making sure that we provide alternatives for the local community to receive treatment. So that is the combined measure there. It wasn't that long ago that the NHS, say it wasn't that long ago, it might have been 10 years now, but that the NHS had a 98% standard, and lots of organisations met that. It then dropped to 95, and then obviously COVID has really sort of opened that up significantly. But the truth is that challenge always existed pre-COVID as well. You can see over the last 10 years the deterioration in performance. So there's some way to go to get back to where it needs to be. And then when you just look at our sites alone, you can see the performance there. So there is, again, more work for us to do to make sure that that is a standard that we can improve upon. And again, it is a measure of how the system is working. And then ambulance handovers, we measure that a number of ways. That's the number of people that are waiting at the front door, but also the number of the number of hours lost. And that is a sign of how quickly you can get ambulances back on the road to support patients in their local community. And you can see that shift over the past 12 months or so. And so, just a few other things to mention, just conscious of time. I've talked about maternity. I talked about the Panorama situation back in January and some of the work that we've been doing. Since then, back in May, we were issued with a Section 31 improvement notice from the Care Quality Commission. It's our regulator for all things care related. And that was focused on improving safety around governance and oversight in particular. And our team have been working relentlessly on that. We've had quite a bit of national support as well, some of which has been in the organisation today, helping us work through things. And in terms of oversight, that forms part of a quality improvement group, a QIG, which is chaired by Marie Crofts, the chief nurse of the ICB. And that brings together all of the partners, both regulators, us as a provider, the local maternity and neonatal board, and also the Maternity and Neonatal Voices Partnership, the MNVP, and that represents the voice of mums and families in that. So it's an important part of that structure. And we meet on a bi-weekly basis at the moment around that to track progress. And we are making progress against some of the measures that the CQC asked us to focus on. Some of that relies on recruitment, and since September last year, we've recruited about 33 new midwives. It's really important because I think we forget this sometimes in all of the coverage. Maternity is not just about midwives, it's about the obstetricians and a whole host of other staff that work behind the scenes. But for the purposes of this, I've just pulled out 33 midwives recruited to the service since last September, and a further 20 will join between now and February, 10 I think over the course of the next month. But with that, we are still challenged around vacancies, around 13%. Now,
it was on the local TV news last night that the maternity unit in Gloucester, for some reason, couldn't cope with the number of patients because of staff shortages or whatever, and that they've been being sent down to Bristol. Is that the case?
If you hold fire on that question, and we'll pick that question up at the end because it's a really good question, and I can answer that one for you. But vacancies mask also the number of people that are themselves on maternity leave or off sick or on training. So actually the true number of gaps in our service is higher than that. So it is a significant part of what we need to do. And when we come back at the end to answer that question, the relationship between the vacancies and the recruitment and why there are some services that we've got temporarily closed, I think becomes really important. And then just a few quick things there in terms of improvement. We've got, we want to, going forward, really sort of strengthen the approach to improvement in the organisation. We've got about 4,000 staff trained in an improvement approach. And part of Will's role that we've recruited Will to is help drive that forward. But you can see some of the projects that we've been completing, or the numbers of projects that we've completed. We also punch well above our weight when it comes to research as well. You can see the number of people that have been recruited into research. So it's over 1,500 patients there, and shortlisted for several national awards. So I'll canter through this because I can see Deborah sort of nudging me for timing. A big focus for this year. I shan't repeat what I've said around urgent and emergency care, but I'm really happy to take questions when we get to the questions and answer part at the end. But you can see there what it is that we're trying to do there. That, again, is not just us as a trust, it is us as a system that has placed that as a key priority. The progress around maternity services is going to be key for us. The progress around the culture and retention, and particularly the psychological safety, ED&I, and building that leadership capability. I shan't steal Karen's thunder on the financial position. I've touched on the capital challenges, and Karen can illustrate that a bit more. And then there's something there for me as is that we've talked about the Fit for the Future, which was the whole sort of process of changing some of our services and consolidating our services in different sites. So stroke in Cheltenham, cardiology here. I want to get into that space now that we realise the benefits of those changes, because we made some commitments to the public, we made some commitments to our staff, and I'd like us to be able to show what the impact that has had. Last year, when I came to the annual members meeting, I was working my notice period from the Great Western, and I heard a statistic that said that because we'd moved and consolidated our stroke services, there were 27 extra lives saved as a result of that work, and that service has been consolidated in Cheltenham. And I checked just yesterday what that figure looks like since then, and in total we can quote just over 37 patients there alive today as a result of the work that we've done. If we can do that across our services and quantify and show you the impact that's had, I think actually we could all agree that that's worth the effort, it's worth the hard work that goes into making those services safer and better for you as a community. And then this is the final slide. So what else is ahead of us? You will have seen just a few weeks ago the publication of the Darzi report into it was the sort of an independent investigation of the NHS in England. It was sort of the headlines were a report on the state of the NHS. It makes for very, very stark reading. You can also see the narrative there from some folk talking about the NHS being broken, etc. Some of those issues are absolutely relevant to the Gloucestershire experience as well. So some of them aren't sort of parochial. They are absolutely national. It talks about that shift from analogue to digital, from acute to community and primary care, and also the shift from illness to prevention. Now, some of those things aren't new. They are things that we've been talking about in the NHS for a long time. So the challenge will be, how do we actually do that, and how do we do that in a county like Gloucestershire? It also highlights some of the issues I've talked about today, like capital and some of the challenges, the waiting backlog, but other things as well that are absolutely, we have a part to play, but they are structural in terms of our country. Growing demand in some critical areas, particularly areas like mental health. Now, whilst we are not a mental health provider, we care for people with both physical needs who also happen to have mental health needs. That's something we're going to have to think differently about. The growth in the number of people that come in with, that are frail, with dementia, all of that means that we will have to train and think differently about how we provide care. The link between that and the growing number of people that aren't in employment, educational training due to illness. There is an absolute economic imperative to get that waiting list down so that people can get back on their feet and into work as well and get on with their lives. So there is a link there to the whole issue of economic growth. And all of this, and the whole issue of an ageing population as well, which we're already seeing the impact of that in Gloucestershire, and that will continue to grow over the next decade and beyond. All of that will go into shaping a 10-year plan for the NHS, which we expect to be out around March and April time. So that's the big question mark, I guess, for us as a provider, is what will that look like? What will it feel like for us? What will we have to do differently to be able to respond to some of these national challenges, but those challenges that are really manifesting themselves locally as well? So that's a whistle-stop tour of the last year and a bit bringing everybody up to speed, but we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. I'm going to hand over to Karen now to talk through the financial position.
Okay. You don't want to answer the maternity question on its own?
Yeah, I can do that, yeah. Okay.
Briefly, and then we'll go straight on to Karen.
So the question about our ability to cope with the number of mums that are coming through the service. So about 2 years ago, the Trust took the decision to temporarily close the Avita Birth Centre in Cheltenham, and also around the same time, the postnatal beds in Stroud. The fundamental reason behind that is when you look at our staffing position and some of the challenges around staff across the service, we were at risk then of spreading our staff too thinly, and that's obviously a high risk for mums, babies, and it's a high risk for any service, let alone maternity. So I think the organisation took the decision, the right decision at the time, to temporarily close those services and bring all of the staff into the Royal here. That does still mean that we provide a delivery suite, so consultant-led delivery in on the site here. We also have a midwife-led unit here as well. We also provide births out in the community, so at home, and also down at Stroud as well. So there are still choices and options for mums. And we are working hard to reopen those services. But as you can see, the number of gaps that we have and the recruitment challenges that are national mean that we can't rush to do that. And I wouldn't want to rush to do that and risk safety in those services as well. But the team are absolutely focused on reopening the Avita.
Good, thank you very much. We are going to progress to the annual accounts. I'm waiting for the technology to catch up with us. Karen, I don't know whether you want to start while Craig sorts out your slides.
Okay, thank you.
And can you speak loud and
I
slowly?
will, yes. I'm well known for my loud voice, so can everyone hear me? Yeah, great, thank you. So good afternoon all, I'm Karen Johnson, Director of Finance for the Trust. I've been here for almost 5 years now, so I'll take you through a couple of slides. So for those of you who've been here before, they are a common theme in terms of the format. So where were we? So last year we set a budget, a break-even budget, like we've done this year. And we performed really well, I have to say, even though we ended the year with a £500,000 deficit in relation to the overall expenditure value. That was only 0.07% variance. So when you put it into a variance analysis, actually we were very, very close to a break-even position. In addition to that, what we had to do was make significant efficiencies. And when I say efficiencies, I mean cash out of the organisation. So we make a number of what we call cost avoidance savings, which means that we stop a cost pressure from happening. But that wouldn't generate a break-even position. We have to take cash out of the organisation in order to break even. And we are no different to any other acute provider across the country or any ICS. We all have to make efficiencies. It's part of what the Treasury expect us to make as an NHS provider. We delivered £28.7 million worth of cash efficiencies out of the organisation last year. And that is a credit to everyone that works within the organisation. I don't make that happen. I help to govern it. I help to make sure that everybody's got the tools and the information to be able to try and drive the efficiencies out. But it's all the frontline services and support services that make that happen. And we delivered £28.7 million. We were meant to make about just over 30 million, so we didn't quite get there. But actually, that was a phenomenal achievement. Of that 28 million, though, we actually made about 55% of that was non-recurrent. And what I mean by non-recurrent is that you make the saving once, but it doesn't happen again. And all that, what that means then is that you drive a bigger challenge into the following year, because you still have to make that efficiency when you go into the next year. And that, fundamentally, if you'd been here this time last year, is the same message as I gave last year, is that the Trust makes more non-recurrent savings than it does recurrent savings. So all it's doing is adding to a bigger deficit as we go through each year. And that's no common with what we're experiencing this year as well. So what we need to try and do is focus much more on transformation change with our system colleagues around sustainable pathway changes that can lead us into a much more financially sustainable position. As a system, so as an integrated care system, we were able to work really collaboratively with the other two NHS organisations, and we were able to submit a balanced position overall. So again, a credit to the system, because not everybody in the country were able to deliver that position at the end of the year. So some of the areas that we make really good savings on, and we're doing it again this year, is in our procurement services. So how we effectively procure services and equipment. Our medicines management, so drugs, and our ability to optimise our purchasing power there is really, really good. We have a really good relationship with an organisation that provides our theatre services, and they drive out efficiencies for us as well. So lots of really good pieces of work that continue into the current year as well. So where do we spend our money? So you can see there that we spend, it's about 55%, I'm just looking at the percentage, you probably think I should know this. It's about 55% is on pay. And actually, when you look at our non-pay, you can see there a huge amount is on drugs and clinical supplies. And the breakdown of the pay is comparable with what Kevin was saying. It's not just about frontline services, it's about healthcare support workers, it's about finance, HR, it's all that support function that helps this organisation run as effectively as it can. So moving us on. So Kevin also touched base on this as well in terms of our backlog maintenance. So last year we spent £55 million on capital. We do really well here on trying to get capital allocations from the region and national teams. And you can see there that we try desperately to target our resources, not just into backlog maintenance, which is really important, but actually innovation and making us a better place. So service development has been a real key driver for us over the last couple of years in terms of our Fit for the Future programme. But we've also got significant maintenance costs, and actually £8 million when you've got £100 million backlog maintenance is not going to cut the mustard. So we do know that we're seeing some of those pressures, as Kevin's already mentioned, around some of our theatre efficiencies is becoming more and more challenged as we go through this financial year. And also our medical equipment, they have a life, and a lot of them are starting to come to the end of their useful life, so they do need to be replaced. So we have quite a challenging capital programme as we entered this financial year, and even more so as we enter next financial year. So looking ahead, so in the current year, it's probably been the hardest financial plan that we've been able to, that we've had to sign off as an organisation and as a system. And we took a decision as a system that we were going to increase our savings to probably higher than what we were felt comfortable with initially, to make sure that we still were able to submit a balanced plan for this financial year. For us, that meant that you can see there, the total savings for the system was £94 million this year, of which the Trust has got a target of 37.4. And John will come on to it, I'm sure, in a minute, around some of the concerns that external organisations have on our ability to be able to deliver that year on year. That is 5% of our overall budget. That is a significant percentage. And it does mean that we have to do things differently. We can't just take little bits here and little bits there and look to deliver 37 million. We're about 7 million short on that at the moment. So we're heading towards another 30 million savings that we've delivered this financial year, which again is a credit to the organisation. But we are seeing some of that stress in the system because people are running out of ideas, so it is becoming more challenged. We are focusing, and the national team are also putting a lot of scrutiny on the NHS, and we are no different, where the focus needs to be on our productivity. So what we've seen pre-pandemic is that our workforce has grown significantly. Not actually all in frontline services, some of that is in back office as well, but our workforce has grown significantly. But our productivity, when we started this financial year, was there or thereabouts the same level as 1920, maybe slightly low. We're higher than that now. So our clinical teams have really pushed on that productivity metrics to say, actually, we need to be doing more and making sure that we're using our clinics in the best possible way. Making sure our theatres start on time, finish on time, all the normal basics that you would expect to be in place. We're just going through that again and again to make sure that we've not let those slip. And our productivity, we are the only one in the southwest at the moment that is really driving that quite well. So that will be an area where we will continue to focus on. And you can see there that in terms of backlog maintenance, it continues to be a pressure, as I've already mentioned, but we do continue to have that dialogue with our integrated care partners and sharing the problem and trying to solve the problem collectively.
Good.
So I'll hand over to John.
Thank you very much. Yes, John is our Audit Committee Chair.
There you go, John.
Great, thank you, Karen. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. It's lovely to be here. As Deborah says, I'm audit chair. I've been audit chair for some 16 months now, so this is the first year end that I've been able to see through. I have two roles in that I'm reporting what our auditors reported to us as audit committee, and then I'm going to tell you a little about what we as the audit committee are doing about the results. So we have the various findings up here. So the findings effectively are a matter of record. They are the audited results for the trust. They're in the publications. The trust has been assessed as a going concern by our auditors, and the directors of the trust concur with that assessment. Overall, the results point to a fairly challenging position from the trust. We've heard from Karen and we've heard from Kevin about where we currently are. And as Karen has said, the cost improvement position on the right side of the slide has entailed a good deal of work and quite a lot of negotiation, both internally and externally with system partners. And it is, I can confirm that it is receiving a good deal of executive level scrutiny and also through the committee and board monitoring. In terms of the NHS oversight framework, there are 4 escalating support segments available, and you can see we are in segment 3A, which is one below the highest level, and clearly it is an area that brings a degree more scrutiny than we would ideally like. So clearly we need to be moving in the other direction so that we are, less of a profile, and a lot of effort is going into that. In respect of the various recommendations that have been made, particularly around the financial statements initially and the annual reporting, and in terms of how we have sought to address that, audit committee met 3 times during June to assess all of the work that had been associated with the year-end processes and to make recommendations to a special meeting of the Board of Trustees that took place at the end of June. And I want to record my thanks for the considerable work that went in across a good range of teams across the organisation to get the entire process effectively across the line. And I would also want to applaud the candour and the consideration that is evident in the reflections on our performance that's detailed in the various parts of the report. So I think that's really something to be commended. And you've heard a good deal of that and of what is happening through the report that Kevin has given us. So in terms of what we're doing to improve things. My apologies, there were 3 slides when this came through to me. There are now 4. So apologies if that is a little clunky. So in terms of what we're doing to improve things, the head of internal audit opinion, the annual opinion that we get from our internal auditors, gave us limited assurance, which was disappointing but unsurprising given the various challenges that we have traced, that we have faced and uncovered as a trust. It was quite a difficult read as it drew on several limited assurance reports, the CQC improvement requirements that we have heard about, and the financial deficit. Some of these items are clearly in our gift, and we have really sought to emphasise engagement and seen benefit from that. And these improvements need to be sustained. But I think the key thing really is that a balance needs to be struck. We want management to be prepared to shine the audit light on areas where we know that we need to improve and not to over-focus on the consequences of doing that. And some of the limited assurance areas that we experienced and that have fed into the overall assessment this year were as a result of this, and it was really about not having sufficient time to be able to evidence improvement. So we put a lot of focus also on improved engagement with the internal audit recommendations, and we're starting to see really good progress there. But there is more to do, and it's something that we are continuing to focus on. In respect of the annual governance statement, it's quite prescribed and structured, but as I've said, it's a very candid assessment of the current position and of the remedial action that is proposed. And the audit report weaknesses highlighted by the external auditors are consistent with the head of internal audit opinion. Areas of significant weakness and recommendations to address these have been noted, and positive management action is being taken. One of the other areas where we slightly kind of tripped ourselves up over the past year was that we changed the meeting schedule for the Audit and Assurance Committee, and as a result, although we created more space to be able to make progress between meetings, we didn't really align with the most helpful year-end touch points. So that's something that we've taken on. We've reviewed the annual timetable, and we've endeavoured to ensure that the Audit and Assurance Committee is much better aligned to be able to support year-end and to address the concerns that were raised as they arise, so rather more on the front foot. And just in conclusion, the focus of the very recent September meeting, the message really was around intending to focus on consistently delivering so that we're much better placed to get back to a substantial level of assurance, while also uncovering the areas where we need to improve. And we're getting good feedback, that meeting in particular, good feedback from our internal auditors that we are progressing in this regard. So hopefully build on the progress that Kevin and Karen have articulated earlier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, if you've got lots of questions about our accounts, save them until the end of the meeting. We're going to move on now to talk about cancer, and I'm very pleased to welcome my colleague Sam Gugliani, who is an oncologist and leads our cancer appeal, and Richard Hastelow-Smith, who is the director of our charity. And already the slides are up, so I'm going to hand straight over to you.
Can you hear me at the back? Afternoon, my name's Sam Gugliani. I'm a consultant oncologist here. I've been a consultant since 2006. Here I'm proud to say I look after patients with lung cancer, brain tumours and acute oncology. I'm also the chair of the hospital's Law and Ethics Committee. Cancer is a really common disease, unfortunately, almost always a function of ageing and our weathering bodies. However, in 2024, as well as it being increasingly common, there is so much more that we can do about it. Cancer treatment is, of course, a function of not just oncology, but surgical teams, radiology, X-ray, screening, interventional radiology. A cancer centre, a regional cancer centre, is a very particular thing. So if we think of the UK and its 6,000 odd hospitals, some more odd than others, in a cancer centre, of course, there's only about 60 of those hospitals in the UK. So it's a regional tertiary hospital. Cheltenham General, within the Gloucestershire Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust complex, on the Cheltenham General site, we house one such regional cancer centre, serving a population of around 1 million persons, all the way from Powys down to Stroud, and located proudly in this town and this county. So what is it in this regional cancer centre in Cheltenham that we do? Well, alongside our teams and within those teams, we deliver state-of-the-art systemic anti-cancer therapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, targeted therapies, very precision, complex modern radiotherapy, intensity modulated radiotherapy, stereotactic radiotherapy, radionuclide treatments. And all of this within the knowledge that year on year, particularly with our drug treatments, there's around a 7% workload growth. So 7% workload growth, population of 1 million individuals, wide geography, and roughly 5,000 new cancer diagnoses every year coming through this regional centre. So cancer centres delivering specialist tertiary treatment, cancer care, of course, being much more than just cancer treatment. Multidisciplinary teams, oncologists, nurse specialists, physiotherapists, dietitians, psychologists, palliative care teams, trials teams, rehabilitative teams, the entirety of a complex all centred around one individual person who has a life-changing condition. And for cancer care to work well, over and above the treatment, it requires those teams, it requires good communication, it requires very, very strong culture, as Kevin was emphasising, but also, importantly, it requires an environment that facilitates that kind of care and treatment. And really, I think it's fair to say that our regional cancer centre now, at one end of Cheltenham General Hospital, is struggling with that estate, its environment, and the facilities within which we try to administer the best possible treatment and care. The spaces are cramped, often not adequately lit, spaces in which we're delivering often quite charged conversations around diagnostics, trial opportunities, treatment opportunities being delivered in small areas where there's not enough space perhaps to look at scans or to sit with family members, and indeed also treatment until very recently being administered in very similarly cramped spaces. So we now, since around 2000, would you believe it, and 10, have been pushing hard to optimise our estate for efficiency, for safety, for quality, but also for the care we want to deliver, for the staff we want to recruit and retain, but also because of our reputation. Really important. We're a regional centre, neighbouring Bath, Bristol, Taunton, Cardiff, and alongside everything we're doing so well, we want to shout about what we do well in Gloucestershire on the Cheltenham site. So, leading up to and certainly right through the pandemic, as well as maintaining our regular levels of clinical activity, myself and the team, together with Richard, and with lots of support through the organisation, have been working with healthcare planners towards a vision, which is a new 2-storey build within the Oncology Centre, south-facing over College Lawn, within which we will be hoping and aiming to have a much more state-of-the-art complex outpatient consultation suite, a multidisciplinary suite, digital suites for remote consultation, all of it well lit, spacious, less of a maze, more welcoming, and linked to the main oncology centre within which we're going to internally transform the current space. We have a 24/7 acute haematology oncology unit in that space, which we're wanting to allow a wider area to for patients who are struggling with either the side effects of their treatment or indeed their illness itself. So a bespoke, wider acute haematology oncology unit, good digital suite, better consultation areas, a much clearer reception area. All of it centred around what still is a really important area within the oncology centre, our garden outside our inpatient unit, which is a therapeutic space for all who use it. And that vision now, Richard's going to, I think, explain how we're going to work towards achieving that, what the fundraising towards that looks like, and in fact, how much progress we've made already towards that ambition. Richard.
Thanks. I think it's an absolute privilege with the Hospitals Charity to represent colleagues across the Trust, and hearing Sam speak, it's a reminder of the why are we doing this? And this is an incredible vision to do something which is so much more than a standard facility. You'll see from the pictures as we tap along, a space full of natural light that really makes patients feel welcome and matches the level of care and treatment which our teams give with the environment that our patients walk into. It's also a privilege to match the community with the hospitals and to act as that catalyst for the community to express their thanks, to express what they want. And we launched our Big Space Cancer Appeal a few weeks ago, and just seeing the comments coming through on donations when people give about they want this, they want a space of natural light, but they also want it for the cancer team, and they're incredibly grateful for the care that's given. And so really, it is a privilege to be in that space of connecting the community and the hospitals. Our Big Space Cancer Appeal aims to do two things. It aims to firstly fund a new build which extends the current oncology site, and that's a really important first step. After that, those sort of small spaces Sam was talking about, we'll go back in and transform those. So 2 phases, a total cost for those of £17.5 million. I'm very happy to say that we're at £8.3 million raised today, raised and pledged. And that's a partnership work. It's through us and the charity and our supporters, the Trust, and some funding from the Department of Health to get to that point. Now the public appeal aims to see us firstly to that point of having the new build in place. And at a later stage, we'll be running this for several years to get those internal transformation in. And by so doing, it's giving an environment which really does justice to the team's work, which they can feel proud of, and the team can feel proud to come to work. And while the patients are naturally our focus, the 5,000 or so people who might receive a diagnosis of cancer, it is also for the staff who walk into this building and must work in this building each and every day. So you can see some of the pictures here about that, and hopefully what you can see is an environment which does so much more than what we have today. I should probably just sort of add as a footnote, though, that that's not all we're going to do. We remain committed to staff wellbeing, to health inequalities, to supporting wards across the hospitals. So in the same way as in previous years, we've raised money for CT scanner appeals. We've raised 3.5 million and funded 4 CT scanner appeals. This is about us having ambition to do more. And the response from the community really validates that, and very excited to be launching this. So you'll see, we've got our website, bigspacecancerappeal.co.uk. You'll see and hear a lot more about this appeal as we continue. And thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much, both of you. And Sam has got to go back to clinical duties after this. So if anybody's got any questions, I've got time for a couple of questions for Sam before we release him. Or we can just let him go. It looks like you can go, Sam. Thank you very much indeed. That's been great, and I hope inspiring to everybody who's listened to that presentation. Okay, we're going to move on now then to the next of our deep dives, which is urology, another growing specialty. I'd like to welcome Edward Tudor, who is one of our consultant urologists, and Alex Matthews, who is our Deputy Chief Operating Officer. Over to you.
Deborah, thank you for your warm welcome, and thank you for letting me talk to you all today. I'm a consultant urology surgeon. I've been in post in the Trust for about 4 years now. And prior to that, I did a lot of my training in Gloucestershire as well. So I'm very pleased and proud to be a member of this organisation. I'm going to talk to you now about some really exciting changes happening in our department, which is based in Cheltenham General Hospital. And as you can see from the title there, a big part of the talk is going to be about our robotic surgical programme that really is going from strength to strength. So let's talk a bit about my specialty. We've heard from Sam Gugliani about what an oncologist is and what they do. But what is a urologist? Well, we're surgeons by training, and we specialise in assessing, managing, caring for patients who have problems, disorders with their urinary tract, which goes from the kidneys, down the ureter pipes, the bladders, prostate glands, and the external genitalia in men. And actually, it's a small part of the body, but we see many, many people because urinary problems are very common in humans. And going from a simple UTI up to more complex things, prostate cancer is, of course, now the most common cancer. And that all comes under the umbrella of my day job. We're a big team. There's 13 consultants. We're proud to be a training unit for 7 registrars, junior doctors, resident doctors, specialist nurses, cancer support nurses, surgical support nurses, specialist ward nurses. It's a big multidisciplinary team. We work closely with our oncology colleagues, our other surgical colleagues, our medical colleagues. We're a training centre. We have trainees coming from the southwest to come and work with us and trainees from further afield because of our reputation. We contribute to international research projects and currently have a number of trials ongoing. Our service is based in Cheltenham Hospital. We've got a dedicated urology ward there. And what that means is it's not just where we go to do our job. It's not just where our patients go to be cared for. It's where our nursing staff go to do their job as well. So if you're a patient on that ward, you can be assured that you'll be getting care from someone who knows what they're doing. We've got a new all-purpose surgical unit that you heard about earlier, the Chedworth unit based at Cheltenham. And this means patients can come in, have day surgery, leave on the same day without coming into the hospital as admission. It improves their journey, it improves their experience. We're in the process of developing specialist outpatient clinics that we'll talk about that, again, are going to improve the patient pathway to try and take patients out of theatre if they don't need to be there, to try and take patients out of the emergency department if they don't need to be there, freeing up space for other treatments for other patients. Specifically, what do? Well, we treat patients with complex urinary tract infections, those are the ones that maybe recurrent or not simply the sort of thing that a general practitioner can treat with a short course of antibiotics. My specialty interest is cancer, bladder and prostate cancer and paediatric cancer. But of course, as you'll be familiar with, kidney stones will also be a big part of some of my colleagues' job and my job as an emergency surgeon when I'm on call. Benign prostatic enlargement, non-cancerous prostatic enlargement really is what keeps the jobbing urologist in work. We have a lot of men who have problems with this as they get older, and we're really at the cutting edge of offering a wide range of treatments to treat this and really empowering the patients to make a choice as to which one they think is best for them. Aquablation, the robot you can see on the right there, is a new treatment that we're interested in, and hopefully we're looking forward to discussing that with the commissioners in due course. Prostate cancer is the commonest cancer, and we offer surgical removal of the prostate with the robotic system, which I'll talk about, as well as treating kidney, bladder and testicular cancer. As Dr. Guglani alluded to, we are in the same boat. We see patients not just from this county, but we look after patients from Herefordshire and also East Wales. Our catchment area is large. Patients are driving often for many hours to come and see me for their care. We are in the process of developing our urology centre of excellence based in Cheltenham Hospital, co-located in one wing of the hospital with a specialist urology ward, a specialist urology outpatient assessment clinic, day clinic, and our offices with our theatres or operating theatres nearby. What we're looking to do is to transform our service, to improve patient pathways, reduce the time they spend waiting for care, reduce the time they spend waiting in departments they don't need to be in, for example, the emergency department, and get them out of the operating theatre. We can do their care in a local anaesthetic setting. It's all about education in our department. We have registrars who come through, and we've got a good track record of being the centre of excellence for the trainees who come through the region. They want to come to Cheltenham because we train them well, and we've got good retention of the trainees who want to stay working in our region. We're training our specialist nurses up so they can do more tasks independently, which of course means we've got more capacity in our diagnostic clinics to reduce waits for treatments such as patients who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. By co-locating our services in one part of Cheltenham Hospital, it means that our MDT, multidisciplinary team working, is more closely knit, and therefore people's happiness at work improves and our retention improves as well. My colleague Alex is going to talk about this slide, then I'll tell you a bit more about robotics in a second.
Thank you. So one of the important factors when determining what did the Centre of Excellence look like for urology was not just thinking about cancer, not just thinking about robotic surgery, but thinking about the wide range of treatments that we offer for Gloucestershire patients. So we just wanted to give you a small insight into some of the things that meant to align the vision and the objectives that we wanted to achieve. So, such as the emergency pathways, which are thriving within urology at Cheltenham General. We wanted to create a co-located series of spaces where you could have diagnostic testing treatments. And one of the things that we'll show you a few slides in the future is about the next part of that estate journey with the Urology Investigations Unit, which will house a same-day emergency care urology area for dealing with emergency presentations. We also wanted to factor in how we would be able to do that with some of the estate challenges in terms of backlog maintenance that Kevin's also described. So it was really essential that we thought carefully about the space that we had available to us and really maximise the opportunity in terms of efficiencies of pathways, but recognise we had to do it in a cost-effective manner. And that's why it's taken some time to achieve all the areas of the pathways. But what we've been able to do is think about our sustainability plans and investment in additional staff that we've been able to train along this journey, who will then be able to maximise the estate that will be opening up over the next few months. We were also very keen to look at our training centre availability, and one of the things that we noted, that with new innovation comes new opportunities to be able to drive additional revenue by inviting other specialists from around the country to come and learn from us, recognising the clinical excellence that we have. And I'm proud to say that we're already a national training centre for aquablation, and that's driving additional revenue that we can then put back into delivering the improvements and the centre of excellence that Mr. Tudor's already described.
So robotic surgery, this is the Rolls Royce of my department. This is why I get out of bed in the morning, literally and metaphorically, as a robotic surgeon. And I use the surgical robot to treat patients with prostate and bladder cancer in my practice. My colleagues also use it to treat patients with kidney cancer as well. The robot is a device that I dock into the patient using a small series of keyhole incisions. But it's controlled by a surgeon. As you can see here, my colleague is leaning into a console. His eyes are looking into 2 screens. He's got 3D vision within the patient's abdomen. And what he does with his hands is mimicked by what the robot does. It gives us precision. It gives us detail. It allows us to zoom in, which only increases those two benefits. We've had robotics in Cheltenham now for 10 years. We were one of the first adopters in the southwest to have a surgical robot. I'm pleased and excited to say that in the last 2 years we've upgraded our technology. So now we've upgraded the old initial robot to 2 more cutting-edge devices. We've also got a third robot for the aquablation treatment that Alex referenced, which is a treatment for men with enlarged prostate glands who don't have prostate cancer, along with other treatments that we offer for benign prostatic enlargement. The robot has now become the gold standard surgical approach for treating patients with prostate, bladder, and kidney cancer. And what's particularly exciting about it is the benefits that we never really anticipated. When I'm training my registrars, I have 2 of these consoles in theatre, and much like a pilot flying a plane, I can give control to the registrar and take it back again at a second's notice, which means the registrar could be trained in a way that was impossible with the old-fashioned open surgical techniques. The other key difference, again, we didn't anticipate, is we can do operations now with the robot that were not possible with old-fashioned open surgery. For example, last week I did the first robotic pelvic exenteration surgery in the southwest for a lady with recurrent cervical cancer, and she's just gone home today after 7 days in hospital. Previously, that would have taken 14 days probably. So the robot is fantastic. It's brilliant for patients. It reduces the length of stay. It reduces the length of the incisions they need on their abdomen, which means they mobilise and get out of bed more quickly and get home more quickly. And as you can see here, why is it beneficial? Well, as I've said, it gives us more precision, more control. It makes us better surgeons. It's minimally invasive, so instead of an old-fashioned 30-centimetre incision on your abdomen, my patients wake up with 6 1-centimetre incisions. Therefore, it's less painful. They get out of bed quicker. They get home quicker. And that means, of course, we have more space on the ward for other patients. We've estimated that across myself and my colleagues who use the surgical robot, we've done about 2,500 operations in 10 years. And as I've explained, the types of operations we can do with the robot is growing all the time. And as I've said, reducing bed days and improving flow through the hospital. Alex, would you like to talk about our new urology investigations unit?
Yes, so what you'll see on the top right-hand side of the screen, and apologies for those in the back, is just to give you a sense of what one of our current inpatient wards based at Cheltenham General will look like in the next few months when it becomes the urology investigation unit. Really exciting premise of doubling the amount of procedure rooms that urology currently have available in order to deliver high volume diagnostic tests, particularly for those who are waiting for a cancer diagnosis or reassurance. We're also going to have an inbuilt lithotripter, so the ability for dealing with emergency patients with stone presentations, where we'll be able to treat in a day case setting without the need for long prolonged stay in hospital. We will also be able to deliver dedicated urology nurse practitioner clinic rooms so that if you do have to stay in hospital and you have to come back for post-operative care, you know that you're going to be coming back to the same unit, the same nurses, and deliver a co-located care. That means for patients who come to our hospital, you only have to go to one part of the building. We've managed to therefore release space for other specialties to benefit across Cheltenham General, but it just gives a sense of how by putting services closer together, not only do you streamline pathways, but you give the ability for staff to train en masse. So by being able to put some of these services together, we've been able to train nurse practitioners up in the diagnostic tests that have meant we've been able to then release consultant time to deliver more treatments. And all of this is part of our sustainability model, but is still a way in the future, as we've described, with the estate that's due to come on board. Should we go to the next one? And then finally, we wanted to talk about some of the elements of the journey that we're still very much on that journey to achieve. And part of that is about cancer wait times. So in terms of where we started in April of this year, cancer wait times for 62 days was some of the lowest that urology have had here. And what we recognised is that in order to create a sustainable achievement of wait times and to deliver care faster, we needed to look at this as a wholesale transformation, not just in the estate that we have, not just in the staff who are here delivering the care, but thinking about the end-to-end pathway and putting in place those building blocks. One of the things that we're really proud to have achieved over the last 6 months is what's shown in the infographic here. So in June of 2024, there were 413 patients that were waiting for their diagnostic test to determine whether they had prostate cancer. We were unable to date them. We had too few operating lists in terms of diagnostic tests. And what we've been able to do with an increase in staff, particularly specialist nurses, is train them at pace, supported in the training centre model by the clinicians. And we were proud to say at the end of September, we only had 69 patients waiting for their diagnostic test. So huge change at the front end of the pathway, but we want to ensure that this carries on through so that when you come here and you receive your care, you do so in a timely manner and you're not left waiting. Where we are from today versus where we were in April, we've already made a 20% increase in terms of our performance for 62 days. We know that we still have a long way to go, but hopefully this demonstrates the transformation journey that urology is on and the future that's going to be possible in Cheltenham General Hospital, not just for urology, but for elective services overall as we become a surgical elective hub.
Thank you very much. And I particularly enjoyed this presentation because I think it highlights the partnership that we like to engender between management and clinicians. You can see it very much, the benefits of working so closely together. So I commend you for that and thank you for it. And at this point, I also just wanted to note that this is an area that has been of a real interest to our governors, and our governors have been holding our feet to the fire on those urology waiting times. So I wanted to thank you for that, governors. We're going to talk about governors later on, but I wanted to thank you for that. Edward has got to go and do clinical things, of course, but if there's a member of the public, rather than the people we usually talk to, if there's a member of the public who's got a question you'd like to ask Edward about urology, I would be very grateful. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I had an experience last year in June. One Sunday afternoon, I got this quite severe abdominal pain going on and had to call out an ambulance. I was taken into the accident and emergency section of Gloucester Hospital. I was taken in a chair into a waiting room. I was waiting there hours. Everybody else seemed to be going through. You know, I asked the receptionist when I was going to be seen. I mean, the pain got so bad I had to lie down across 3 or 4 chairs. Then a new receptionist came in and I asked the same question. I was told I was in the wrong place. I had to go across the corridor to another room where I was eventually seen. Somebody called Mohammed took me into a cubicle and was testing for various things. He didn't say what he was doing. I think he was testing for aortic aneurysm or possibly a perforated duodenal ulcer. he never said what he found, but at 7 o'clock the next Monday morning, I was sent home without knowing what was wrong with me. Well, lunchtime that day, the pain had come back on as bad as before. I had to call out another ambulance. I was taken back into Gloucester Hospital to a upstairs unit. It was evening by then. I think it was the junior doctor took me through herself in a wheelchair to have a scan done, which came back to show I had a kidney stone. And they found me a bed in the hospital that night. I mean, the next day about midday they said they found me a bed in Cheltenham Hospital. I mean, I thought I'd be transferred there to have the procedure that day to treat the kidney stone. I had to wait 5 hours to get transported to Cheltenham Hospital, by which time it was late at night. So I mean, there's a few issues there, but, you know, why they couldn't diagnose kidney stone when I was first taken into the Gloucester Hospital, and why you've got to wait 5 hours for transport because they haven't got urology department in Gloucester Hospital.
Yeah, I think
You might want to do a double act with Mark Pietroni, our medical director at this point. Mark, if you'd like to come up, but please, Edward, yes.
Yeah, well,
you
thanks
start.
for your question. I'm sorry you had.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like a dreadful time. It sounds like you're in a lot of pain for a long time. I mean, we've already heard this afternoon about how A&E's been under a huge amount of pressure, but our weights are improving, and actually, the struggles you've raised actually do fit really nicely into our centre of excellence, because in time, the work is already in process. So patients like yourself will not be waiting in A&E. When that diagnosis is made, you'll come across to our urology assessment unit, which is not an inpatient ward. It's a outpatient setting in Cheltenham Hospital. You'll be able to walk in or come across an ambulance if you're very poorly, and we can give you immediate treatment there. And from there, we can make the decision, do you need admission to hospital for an operation? Or, in certain situations for patients with kidney stones, I can't comment on your case individually, of course, because I don't know the details, but some patients like yourself will be able to have lithotripsy, which is this technology that we've alluded to. A lithotripter is a shockwave device that fires high-dose shockwaves at kidney stones with a patient who's awake. They can have the treatment, stand up afterwards and walk out of the hospital. At the moment, patients who have kidney stones often have to go to the operating theatre for a general anaesthetic and some kind of an operation. And that means there's a longer recovery afterwards, and they're stuck in hospital often for 1 or 2 nights afterwards. So not only will the experience for patients at the front end be better, but also the experience for every other patient in the county who needs one of our precious urology beds will be improved as well. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add anything to that.
Mark, do you want to add anything?
Well, just like Ed, I'd just apologise for the experience you had. It does sound truly awful. And the fact that things are getting better is probably little comfort. But it does describe exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get patients to the right specialist at the beginning so that we avoid the need for people to go through the emergency department. When I qualified, every admission went direct to a ward. That changed. I've been in this job quite a long time. And then every patient came through the emergency department and was triaged and then went to the specialty. And increasing what we're doing now is trying to get every patient to the specialist department, which, as has been described, will have its own assessment unit or receiving unit in order that you can be seen by the specialist, because we have learned that you get the correct treatment more quickly and you're more likely to be able to go home the same day or the next day. So that's what we're trying to do. But as I said, I'm very sorry for the experience that you had, but glad that we managed to sort it out in the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for making that contribution. Okay, let's let our colleagues go on to other things. And we will also go on. I'm very pleased to welcome Andrea Holder, who is our lead governor, to present about our Council of Governors. I chair the Council of Governors, but Andrea guides them and herds them. And And governors are very important to us because in foundation trusts they have certain specific roles, but also we regard our governors as a vital source of information about patient experience and feedback about patient experience, but also about the experience of colleagues who work here. So over to you, Andrea.
Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, okay, lovely, thank you. Well, as Deborah said, I'm Andrea Holder, I'm the lead governor for the Trust. I've been a governor here for 3 years and it's been my privilege to be lead governor for the last 2. I'm very passionate about the NHS, it is my background. So who are the rest of us? Well, here are our public governors. We have 2 for each constituency in the region, but as you can see, we are currently holding a couple of vacancies. We go out to election normally once a year, although this year we've been out twice, and that's largely because earlier on in the year, for a whole variety of reasons, we had numerous vacancies within the Trust, within the Council, and felt that we needed to recruit to those vacancies earlier than we normally do to make us quorate in meetings and things. So we've been out twice this year, once in April and once more recently this summer in July. And so we currently only have 2 vacancies, and that's largely because the individuals who held those posts chose to resign after the time frame had ended for re-electing new people. So we will unfortunately have to hold those vacancies until next year, but with 20 out of 22 of us, I think we'll probably be all right. So these are the public governors that you can see for each area. And then in addition to that, we have our staff governors, 2 of whom are new to the role this year. But we have 2 representatives for nursing and midwifery, 1 for allied health professionals, 1 for medicine, and 1 for admin clerical staff. So we have true representation across the workforce of the Trust. And then we have our various stakeholder governors. We have our County Council Governor, Matt Babbage. Amanda Naylor is a new governor who is joining us this September, who will come from Healthwatch. Helen Bone, who is a governor representative of Age UK, and we currently have a vacancy in a stakeholder governor there, and we will be in discussions later on this year as to which stakeholder group we might like to invite to submit a governor for us. So that's who we are. What do we do? Oh, sorry, I thought there was another slide. No, all right, there isn't another slide, never mind. Okay, first and foremost, to those governors who are retiring, I would like to thank you personally for your expertise, involvement and commitment to the governing body. It's been invaluable over the last few years. And on behalf of all the governors and our Trust colleagues, I would like to wish you well in wherever the future takes you. So thank you very much. And to our new governors, welcome. It's a fabulous job. I'm a bit biased, but I love it. I hope you will too. I would encourage you to get involved. There is no quicker way to learning how a trust works than to actually put yourself forward and get involved, particularly where you've got such a complex organisation as the NHS. Our governing body consists of people with a variety of backgrounds and experience, so I'm confident that going forward those new people will actually will coalesce and will be a really good critical friend to the Trust as we go forward. So what have we done since last year? Well, we continue to attend board meetings. We continue to observe board subcommittee meetings. And we've always feel that we're very welcome at these meetings, and our comments and suggestions go forward and are taken on board, or at least discussed, which is good. As lead, I continue to have one-to-one regular meetings with senior exec colleagues across the Trust, which is very beneficial, I hope, on both sides. If you were here last year, you will have heard me talking about the objective of resurrecting our governor walkabouts, which took a deep dive down in COVID times, and we never did them. And we spent a long time last year sort of looking at how we might reintroduce these and make them more beneficial. And I'm really, really pleased to say that they have got off the ground and are working really well. We've done more this year than we've done certainly before COVID. We do them on average now once a month in conjunction with our non-exec colleagues, and we have expanded the areas that we visit. I think it's fair to say that pre-COVID we tended to focus on those patient-focused frontline services, and what we do now is we go to all areas of the trust. So the most recent examples I can give is we've been to corporate services and we've been to GMS, our Gloucester Managed Services, which was a really good, interesting visit. We've also been to pharmacy, maternity, cancer care, urology care, outpatients, you name it, I think we've been there. So they continue, and we've got good cooperation, good involvement from governors across the board. We also participate in the place assessments. These are the assessments that are patient-led assessments within the care environment, and they're currently ongoing this week and next week. I'm doing one next week, which I'm really looking forward to. And the two together, the place assessments and the governor walkabouts, help triangulate the information that's fed back into the trust about what's actually going on out there. So it's a good way of actually communicating and ensuring that we're giving the best for our patients. We also get involved in the interview processes. I've been very fortunate this last 2 weeks that I've been involved in 2 interview processes, which is always a really enlightening process and procedure. Plus, it gives you a chance to meet other colleagues from the trust that you wouldn't necessarily always come into daily contact with. In addition to that, 3 of us are involved in working with colleagues in the digital team about introducing the electronic patient portal, which has been a really exciting project and is moving at pace. We're also involved in the nutrition group with our allied health profession colleagues, sitting on a steering group that's trying to improve the nutrition and diets for patients, both inpatients and outpatients. And we continue to attend community events. So what hasn't worked quite so well this year? Well, again, last year you may recall that I was talking about looking more broadly at working with our governor colleagues in our partnership trusts. And I've tried several times to make that happen, and I'm still trying. I don't know the reason why, because we're all representing the same community across Gloucestershire, but I will continue to try and do that over the next year, because I think there will be some mutual benefits in governors from both here and the Community Trust and the Ambulance Trust actually working together. So that's a work in progress. Come back next year for the update. So what else are we doing this year? Well, as you will have heard Kevin say, we have a new Director of Integrated Governance in place now. And we are working with Kerry to actually look at how we've been functioning as a governing body, look at our relationship with our non-exec and exec colleagues, and to see ways that we might adapt. I hesitate to use the word improve because I think we work very well now, but there's always ways that you can change things to make them better for patients and their carers and public. So that's what we're going to be doing in the immediate near future. I think it's the week after next that we have our first meeting. So that I'm looking forward to that. That's it from me. Thank you.
Good. Well, that was a glowing recommendation for the voluntary role of being a governor with the Trust. So I hope some of you will note that and take the opportunity to put yourself forward for next year for one of the roles. I'm going to take a risk now, and that is I'm looking at the back of the room and I'm seeing Simon Lovett, who is our professional lead for allied health professionals. Simon will wave at you. Allied health professionals don't like people to sit down for too long because they know it's not very good for us. So I think we're going to follow Simon's lead. I'm surprised he's not standing up already. He usually does. And I'm going to give us 8 minutes break. We're going to come back at 1:45 and we'll do questions and answers. I'm pleased that people have had the chance to have a cup of tea, stand up and chat and mingle. Simon was offering to do star jumps to start the next session, but I thought I would decline on your behalves and go straight into the question and answer part of the meeting. We have offered people the opportunity to ask questions in advance, and we've got a couple of those which I will run through. We've also offered the opportunity to type questions into Slido, and we've got one of those. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions which are about information technology. And they both come from an individual. And that person has, his second question is more of an offer, which is to offer whether there's anything he can do to support us on a voluntary basis on the strategic information systems side of our work. So that's a really, really nice offer. If any of you want to offer us anything, then please... free. Please feel that you can do that. I mean, obviously, part of what this is about is us being accountable, but we're also very keen to involve people. And we have officially something like 240 official volunteers in the Trust. So many people are looking to make a contribution, and we really welcome that. So that was his second question. And his first question, I'm going to ask Helen Ainsbury, our Chief Information Officer, to come up and respond to. I'm also going to précis it because it's got a bit of a preamble, but essentially it says the NHS hasn't got a great history in terms of successful large-scale IT projects, and he talks about that. And then as a concerned local resident, he wants to know how well we're doing on integrated digital systems in Gloucestershire, and in particular there's a standard which is called HIMSS, and he wants to know how we're doing on the target, One Gloucestershire, so the whole of Gloucestershire health organisations. How are we doing in terms of reaching the highest level of those targets?
Right, can I see if people can hear me without the microphone?
That's for people on the...
I do need to use the microphone. Oh, right, okay, all right. Thank you for the question. My name's Helen Ainsbury. I'm the Interim Chief Digital Information Officer. I joined the Trust in April last year, so in April 23. So some of what I'm going to tell you today, I can't take any credit for, and therefore I can really sort of commend the organisation on the progress that it's made. The question referred to something called HIMSS. That is an organisation that is an international organisation based in America, but essentially has a whole series of different standards to measure digital maturity in organisations. And there's all sorts of different sets of standards that you can assess yourself as an organisation. In 2019, when Gloucestershire hospitals embarked on their current digital strategy, this organisation measured 0.2 out of a number 7 scale. So the highest digital maturity you could reach was level 7, and this organisation was 0.2. So I joined the organisation in April last year. Shortly after that, we did get an external organisation. We got HIMSS in. We got HIMSS in to assess where we were on that scale. The digital strategy which had been set out was that we would reach level 6. Our question actually says, were we assessed independently and objectively? And the answer is yes to that. At that point in time, we were level 5 out of that 7-level scale. So just tinkering at the edges of that digital strategy ambition of being level 6. And then in August this year, as we come to the end of this current digital strategy, we have just reached that level 6. So the digital strategy and the ambition in that to reach level 6 has been achieved. So I can really commend everybody that has been involved in that since 2019 to now. The question also refers about us as a system. So as a system, we would also include in that the ICB, and we would include the Community and Mental Health Trust. The standards don't refer to systems as a whole. There's a different one for community services. There's a different one for infrastructure. So we don't use that same HIMSS mark of digital maturity for us as a system. But there are other things that we do. So as NHSE, do an annual collection of where you are with your digital maturity. And as a system, nationally, we're quite middling. We're certainly not in the bottom half. We're not in the top half. We're very, very sort of average, about 2.5 of a number 5 scale. So the maximum that you can get is 5, and we're about 2.5. There are so many different sets of standards that you can use, and it can get a bit confusing. And the final thing I'd say is that, you know, as an organisation, we've made, you know, great leaps in the last few years. That doesn't mean there's not a long way to go. And, as is always the case with digital and the NHE, they've completely rewritten those standards. And in 2023, they've got a different scale, and everybody sort of still talks in that old scale. So we've come leaps and bounds as GHT. Still a long way to go. And as a system, probably a little bit even further to go.
Thank you, Helen. I'm not going to let you go until you've told the audience of 3 digital innovations we've done in this trust which you think have really benefited patients or are benefiting patients. So what would be 3?
Okay, in no particular order, other than the order that they jump into my head then. So the project that I said has just gone live, which has made us reach that level 6, is something called Scan for Safety or Closed Loop Medicines Administration. And what that means is that when a patient is on a ward and they have a wristband with a barcode on it, that we scan that barcode and then we scan a barcode on the medicines to make sure that it's the right patient, it's the right meds, it's the right time for that administration. That is a huge, huge step forward for us as an organisation. There actually aren't many organisations in the country that have done that full Scan for Safety loop yet. We will see the benefits of that in, you know, years and years to come. There is about 10% nationally error rate in medicines administration. So that's a really big one. Another one which, Andrea, where are you? Mentioned in May this year, we went live with our patient engagement portal. That's the first time that we've digitally engaged with our patients. So we're sending out patients to them through our patient engagement portal. And then the other one is just a general EPR one. So, you know, we are live with nursing documentation, doctors' documentation, our whole medicines administration called electronic prescribing. So the electronic patient record has brought us huge benefits and leaps forward with our patients.
Good. Thank you very much. You're released. Thank you. Okay. We're going on to 2 questions which have come from Julius Marstrand, who I think is here with us. I'm going to read out your question, which is about the staffing establishment for the emergency department in Gloucestershire Royal and for Cheltenham General. What we're going to do, Julian, is publish the full answer on our website because it's complex. So you say that you've asked the question at previous annual members' meetings in 2019, 20 and 21. So this is Julius writing as a concerned Cheltenham resident, I think. And you asked for staffing figures which were comparable from different bases and across the different years. So looking at permanent, full-time, part-time staff at each level since 2019, excluding bank and agency staff. So we will reply in detail to Julius. You will be able to see it all on our website. Essentially what it shows, this is, you know, I'm summarising 20 lines of data here, but essentially what it says is that from 2020 to 2024, we've shown 3 columns of data, and we show the total increase in staffing going from 171 to 246, and the increase is mainly in nursing staffing. So that's a very short summary of a bigger discussion which we're having, which goes on over time, Julian. So I hope you're happy that we have at least rehearsed that in public. Okay, thank you. Now, Julian, you had another question, which is about the number of patients conveyed to Cheltenham Emergency Department by emergency ambulance each month since 2019, i.e. before the pandemic, and including the first 6 months of the current year, 2024-25. And again, we are going to put all of this on our website for everybody to see. Mark Pietroni, our medical director, I think may like to comment on this, please. Well, you've seen it. The other page is over, Leaf.
The only comment I would make, because the data speaks for itself, is that because of the changes we've made in patient pathways, not all of the ambulances that come to Cheltenham necessarily now offload their patients into the emergency department. So all the stroke patients that come to Cheltenham by ambulance go direct to the CT scanner and then on to the hyperacute stroke ward. The urology patients who go into the urology assessment unit don't go through the emergency department, they go direct to the urology unit. Slightly apples and pears there, but just to be clear, ambulances still go to Cheltenham, and the process we have at the moment is that the paramedics can ring Cheltenham A&E, and they ring beforehand, call before you convey, and then they take the patients in. So that's also happening. But the details in the numbers, and that's on the website, or will be on the website.
That's great, thank you, Mark. And interestingly enough, we had a chair's visit. This is the chair of this trust, the chair of the Mental Health and Community Trust, and the chair of the Integrated Care Board. We did a joint visit at the middle of August, and it was looking at emergency services, and it was looking at alternatives to coming to the emergency department. And we had invited the chair of South West Ambulance Trust to join us, as well as some of his colleagues. And we asked them, what does good practice look like elsewhere? So they told us a few really good things which were going on around the Southwest region, and in which they felt that coordination of services was really key. But they also said there are some areas in the Southwest, some near to us, that send even more patients direct to the place that they'll be treated rather than coming to the emergency department. And obviously that relieves pressure and is great for the patients. So they showed us we're good at it, but they showed us what even better practice looks like. So that was great. Okay, Julia, so we're going to publish on our website that important issue as well. I've got one question that came through Slido so far, and then I'm going to open the floor to questions. So please think of things, and you can ask us anything. So think of anything that you're interested in or concerned about, and we will do our best to answer. So the question said that under governance arrangements, the Council of Governors has a responsibility to monitor the performance of non-executive directors. So most of the non-executive directors of the Trust who sit on the board with me are here in the room. Perhaps you put your hands up and we can, not all of us are here, but quite the majority of us are here. And one of the roles of the Council of Governors for foundation trusts is to make sure that we're doing the job. So Andrea, perhaps you would like to talk to that.
All right, thank you for the question. Absolutely, we should be monitoring the engagement of the non-exec directors. That is to say, we are not responsible for performance managing them as individuals, but we are responsible for performance managing how they performance manage the board, if that makes sense. So how we do it? Well, we do it through attending board meetings. We do it through observing the subcommittees. I made reference to the board subcommittees. Each of those board subcommittees is chaired by a non-exec director, and there are usually a couple of other non-exec directors there as well. So we observe the engagement from that point of view. The governor walkabouts that I talked about are usually done in conjunction with a non-exec colleague. So we have opportunities to engage with them there. All of that is then fed back through a process. Each non-exec director on an annual basis will have an appraisal, as most people do in their working life. And prior to the appraisal date, we are usually asked to submit how we feel that particular individual has been working, not just with the trust board, but with us as governors over the year. So it's by that mechanism that we actually performance manage, in inverted commas, how our non-exec colleagues work. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. So there's lots of ways, and at the Council of Governors itself, the non-executives who chair committees report back to the council about their committee and what their committee is doing. So there's another opportunity to look in more detail at what the committee chairs, who are non-executive directors, are doing. And as Andrea says, it's a very constructive relationship, but of course they're keeping us on our toes collectively as well, which is a useful and important thing. Okay, now it's over to all of you. If you would like to ask us any questions. So this could be to any of the members of the executive who are all here, or to myself and the members of the board, the non-executive directors. Yes, please. And if you could say who you are for the filming and so that we know where we are, that would be great. Yes, fine.
Afternoon, my name is Mr. Mills, Jonathan, and I've been invited here by email, God knows why, but I'm a patient, obviously. My ill health started in '98 with a bypass surgery, followed by water retention, diabetes, broken leg, on and we go. And now I'm at the point where, at the end of January this year, I broke my hip. Went into Gloucester, had a very successful hip operation, out in 8 weeks, after respite in Cirencester. I went home with bed sores on my feet 9 months ago, and I still can't walk. Why? And why is it taking so long to fix it?
Matt, do you want to
Anybody
come
got a
up?
question?
Mark? Matt and Mark, Medical Director, Nursing Director. Do you want to come in now? Of course, please, feel free.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Holder. I'm the Chief Nurse for the Trust. You shouldn't have gone home with pressure ulcers on your feet, and I'm really sorry that you did.
In Cirencester, all they gave me was a pair of plastic Wellingtons.
So I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
A pair of plastic Wellingtons, blow-up jobs.
Oh, okay, to stop the pressure. Well, it sounds as though you probably had those too late, and really.
Just one thing I forgot to add in, when I went in with a broken hip, I had ferrule straps on my legs because of my vascular problems with the legs. And as I said, on and on and on, lots and lots of problems. Those dressings didn't get changed.
In Cirencester?
Or Gloucester.
Or in
Gloucester.
Gloucester.
We started in Gloucester,
Yeah.
respite in Cirencester, went on with the ferrule accident.
And what should have been happened? What should have happened? Yes, and they should have been changed. Then you should have been assessed for that risk and treated appropriately. And it doesn't.
Falling off heels. They're not healed now after 9 months.
I'm very happy to answer this now, but also I'm very happy to have a conversation with you so I can look into that properly for you, sir. I'm really happy to do that. Okay.
For 25 years.
Well, and it sounds like we should have done better. So why don't we let me give you some contact details and we can have a conversation and I can look into that for you. Is that okay?
Because I don't know why I've been invited.
Okay.
Might be a member of the
Obviously
trust.
my name crops up
Okay.
there and everywhere.
Right.
Every department practically.
Is he a member?
Well-
Yeah. So people who get invited to this meeting include everybody who's a member of the Foundation Trust. So if, okay, so you you may not be, but several people are invited because we invite all the people who are members. No. It's good that you're here because this feedback is very important to us.
Well, I thought I'd come along and find out why I'm here.
We're pleased that you did.
And it wasn't an easy journey.
No. Well, I'm pleased that you've made it. Let me have a conversation with you afterwards, and we'll exchange some details, and I'll get that looked into for you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Bren.
Bren, I'm a Foundation Trust member. So I just wanted to start with a thank you, really, because I think we can always focus on what's not going right and what's not going wrong. So let me start with a thank you, and I wanted to thank all the staff and everybody at the Trust for what they do day after day after day. Obviously, there are things that go right and there are things that go wrong, but I don't believe that anyone comes in with the intention of not doing their best job. So let me just lay that down to start with, really. So my point's about consistency. So I have permission to share what I'm going to share today, because I think we also need to remember that this won't always be a forum and a place for everybody to come to. But how do we get their voices, which is what I'm going to try and do. So some of my friends from the Bangladeshi community had their mother in intensive care unit, 3 days, and they were really begging for the staff to be by their mothers, their aunties' side in intensive care unit, because they felt that although the interpretation was there and there was a process for that, the family, the person would connect very, very much more with the family who could actually speak that language as well. That took 3 days to happen. And there is, of course, the context and situation we need to bear in mind. But from their point of view, whatever, it was felt that we've got good leadership on the day that said, I don't understand why not. And not so good leadership on the 2 days that blankly refused it. So there is something about actually, with all the processes and procedures we've got in place, what is the flexibility around that to benefit the patient, the family, the carers? And also out in the community, I was very privileged to meet someone from the Trust that was at Looking Maternity. Their view on Verita Bryant as a non-exec director was outstanding. It wasn't solicited. It wasn't, tell me a good story. So as well as the staff, let's not forget whatever thanks to the non-exec directors as well. There's another one, but that's more enough to now, and I'll email it through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bren. Thank you for starting by saying some thank yous. We appreciate that. And for saying thank you to Verita. I wonder, Matt, whether you would like to come and talk about the issue about interpreting and your important point about consistency.
Thanks, Bryn, for representing the community in the way that you do, and for the comments that you've made. It's difficult to comment on the specific case. I mean, what I would expect is that we focus on the needs of the patient, and if the patient requires, for whatever reason, their family to be there at all times, that's okay, that's good. In areas like intensive care, sometimes that is challenging because of the nature of the work. So without knowing the detail, it's really difficult to comment any more than that. I think one thing I would say about our interpretation services is that it's been a real focus for us as an organisation, and I think importantly as a system over the last couple of years. And Catherine Holland, who sat at the back, has been right in the centre, right at the forefront of making sure that our interpretation services in Gloucestershire, across all of the care providers in Gloucestershire, are fit for purpose. And really pleased to say that we've got a new interpretation service which has gone live now, which I think will definitely benefit our non-English speaking communities, and that's been, as I say, something really important to us to be able to really engage properly with all members of the community. Again, really happy to look in more detail with the Bangladeshi family that you mentioned about their experience in intensive care, if that would help. It's difficult to comment any more than that without having a bit more information.
It is, but again, they would want me to reinforce this, really. Is they were family that could communicate with their mother in the way that the mother would respond to that, as opposed to we have a translation service that the person who, again, is not in the best of health can't connect to. What my point is clearly here, and I get the context situation, is let's look at the leadership that makes those decisions. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, the same situation.
Yeah.
One person said, I don't understand why not. Why can't you be here after hours? Because that's the same.
And part of the reason that I think
it's complex and I'll talk to hours.
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. And it is complex. And part of the reason it's complex is it depends on what's being communicated. So we need to be really sure when we're giving complex clinical, medical information that that's communicated in a way that we need it to be. And without understanding the intricacies and knowing whether that was part of the decision-making process or not, it's really difficult to comment. But your point around consistency of leadership is well made, Bryn.
It's consistency and connectivity, not just consistency.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? It's very valuable to us to get feedback about when situations where care hasn't been as good as you would have liked. So we welcome that. Hello.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a talk from an oncologist, you know, about this issue that you're going to build a new oncology centre. That there seems to be an issue that, you know, there's a problem with being in a room without a window. Well, I don't think that would be a major issue as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, I had a bad experience when I had prostate cancer, and I had an appointment to have a biopsy and to look at a scan before that. And this was in one of the wards. So I came in with my partner and daughter, and when they called us in for an appointment, they said, well, there isn't enough room for both of them to come in with you. So the daughter came in with me, and we went into this, you wouldn't hardly call it a room, it was more like a box cupboard. I mean, I was sat down looking at this screen to see the scan results. The daughter was standing behind me. In the middle of that, there was suddenly a loud bang. Turned round. The daughter had collapsed or fainted. She'd banged her head on a steel table on the way down. They had to bring in a stretcher to carry her out. I mean, she was taken into a bed where she was for several hours. And now, 5 years later, she's still suffering with neck pain as a result of what happened there. I mean, that was an awful experience. And, you know, it wasn't in the oncology department, it was in a room off one of the wards. So, I mean, I think you should address that before you start doing, you know, cosmetic adjustments to the oncology department.
Kevin, I think will come up. I'm very sorry to hear about that experience that you had and your family, and I'm afraid to say that, and Kevin has already touched on it, we have a lot of rooms in our trust used for clinical purposes which are not fit for purpose, and the oncology centre is a very good example of that. And we get, as we've been doing our cancer appeal, we've had a lot of feedback from people who've been treated there, that the actual care is very compassionate, the treatment is good, but the environment is really poor. Kevin, would you like to add?
Yeah. Thank you. And just to build on what Deborah said, I think part of our challenge as an organisation is often having to sort of rob Peter to pay Paul when it comes to space. So taking over sort of relatives' rooms on wards because we need more beds, or taking over a room that would traditionally be used for breaking bad news because we need space for other clinical activities. That's the challenge that we have. I think some of those things that we talk about, actually, they're more than just cosmetic, because for staff, obviously, they're working in an environment. If they're working for 12 hours in a room without windows and things like that, you know, that has a direct bearing on how good a sort of care, how positive they feel about their work. So all of these things tie in together. It is absolutely in service of trying to provide better care in the organisation. It's not the bells and whistles. And what Sam described earlier, I think he talks about this really eloquently, about the technical skill in providing cancer care, but then the holistic sort of arrangements that wrap around that, the teamwork, the environment, all of those things that go into trying to improve cancer care. But you're absolutely right. That experience of being in a broom cupboard, a small box room, or anything else like that, to have really important conversations, that's not what any of us want. That's part of the reason why there's so much focus on things like some of the estates, some of that investment that we've talked about, or still not near enough in terms of backlog. Part of the planning that we do with patients and with members of staff is to try to create those spaces to make it much more sort of more than just functional, but really taking into account sort of that work environment to try to give people a chance to work somewhere that's pleasant and nice. Some of the spaces that I've been to visit teams in the organisation, I am absolutely in awe that people will turn up every day to do a shift in those spaces because they are just not good enough. I think they're a better person than I am because I don't think I could muster myself out of bed each morning to do that. Then when you see the link between those issues and then poor staff survey results, all of these things are linked. And we know the better staff feel about their work, the better the care they provide, the improved outcomes for patients. There's a direct link there. So it's a really important thing. I think that all of those things are connected together. But your fundamental point about poor environment and breaking bad news and things like that, you're 100% right. And it's something that we're trying to sort of grapple with. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just follow up with another general question concerning the staffing level at weekends? Because I've had some bad experience. I mean, both of my parents died in this hospital on a Saturday afternoon. And the issue then was that the weekend, all the staff seemed desperate to get away, and the weekend starts at 12 o'clock on a Friday, if not earlier. And over the weekend, there's literally hardly any staff here at all. I mean, going back quite a long time now, but there was hardly any staff here at all. So I don't know what the situation is now. I mean, is the staffing level at weekends now the same as during the week, or how does it compare?
Yeah, we've got people queuing up now to answer your question. I think it's another case of it would be nice to talk to you individually about this, but Mark will give you a general answer, and then I'm going to close the meeting because I'm conscious that I'm keeping you all behind now.
So in general terms, nursing staffing is no different weekday, weekend. Obviously, some departments are closed outpatients, although increasingly we're doing work at the weekends as well, elective activity operations. The medical staff in the emergency specialties, I'm what's called an acute physician. We have exactly the same number of doctors on Saturday, Sunday as we do Monday to Friday. Same is true in the emergency department. On the wards, it's slightly different. We have consultants seeing patients on all the wards on both days, Saturday and Sunday, but we don't have full teams because we have an emergency team that picks up any work after hours. That's the same for whatever specialty, medicine, surgery, paediatrics, gynecology. So staffing levels have improved over the years, particularly because junior doctors and increasingly consultants have moved towards shift work. Now, there are pros and cons to that. It's a bit more disruptive of work-life balance, but it does mean that the days I referred to when I started, you were expected to get some sleep at night when I started as a doctor. You're not now. When you're on shift, you're on shift. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it makes no difference. So yes, things are much better than they were. And in the emergency parts of the trust, staffing is pretty much the same now, 7 days a week. But in some of the other parts of the trust, the wards, whilst we have consultant presence 7 days a week, it's not the same as Monday to Friday.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. And can I thank everybody who's joined this afternoon, and thank you for your questions and contributions. I think it's been really good. And we really like to present our work, but we also like to talk with you about what our achievements and challenges have been, to be realistic about those and to hear your feedback. So thank you very much indeed.